My name is Michael, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes loving someone means making the hardest decision of your life. It's about David, my best friend since childhood, my first love, and the person I had to choose between keeping and protecting. It's about family, faith, and finding the courage to fight for what matters most. David and I grew up 3 houses apart on Maple Street in a small town in Georgia where everyone knew everyone else's business. We met when we were 7 years old, on the first day of 2nd grade, when David defended me from Tommy Richardson, who was making fun of my thick glasses and the way I read during recess instead of playing kickball. "Leave him alone," David had said, stepping between Tommy and me with the kind of confidence that seemed impossible in someone so small. "Reading's cool. You're just mad because you can't do it without moving your lips." From that moment on, we were inseparable. David was everything I wasn't: athletic, outgoing, effortlessly popular, but somehow we just fit together. He'd drag me out of my books to play baseball or go exploring in the woods behind our neighborhood, and I'd help him with homework and listen to him practice speeches for student council. Our families were close too. My parents, both college professors, were more liberal than most people in our conservative town, while David's family was deeply religious. His father was a deacon at the largest Baptist church in town, and his mother led the church women's auxiliary, but somehow our differences never seemed to matter when we were kids. We had sleepovers every weekend, shared birthday parties, and spent every summer day together free dinner. As we got older, our friendship only deepened. In middle school, when I was struggling with bullies who called me a nerd and worse, David was always there to defend me. In high school, when David's parents put pressure on him to excel at everything, sports, academics, church activities, I was the one person he could be honest with about the stress he felt. "Sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating," he told me one night during our senior year, as we sat on the roof outside his bedroom window, looking up at the stars. "Like everyone expects me to be perfect, and I don't know how to tell them I'm not." "You don't have to be perfect," I said. "Not with me." He turned to look at me, and something in his expression made my heart skip. "I know, that's why you're my best friend, Mike. You're the only person who sees the real me." I was 18 and had been harboring feelings for David that I couldn't name for years. Sitting there in the darkness, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body, I finally understood what those feelings were. I was in love with my best friend. We both got into the University of Georgia, David on a baseball scholarship and me on academic merit. We decided to room together, and our freshman year was the best time of my life. Away from the expectations and constraints of our small town, we could just be ourselves. We stayed up late talking about everything: our dreams, our fears, our plans for the future. We went to parties together, studied together, and somehow managed to bed. It was during spring semester that everything changed. We'd been studying for midterms in our dorm room, sprawled on David's bed with textbooks scattered around us, when David suddenly closed his biology book and looked at me. "Mike, can I ask you something?" "Sure." Have you ever wondered what it would be like to—" He trailed off, his face flushed. "What?" "To kiss someone, not just anyone, someone specific." My heart was pounding. "Yeah, I have." "Who?" I looked into his eyes, those warm brown eyes I'd been staring into for over a decade, and made a decision that would change everything. "You." David's breath caught. "Really?" "Really, what about you?" Instead of answering, David leaned forward and kissed me. It was soft and tentative at first, then deeper as we both realized that this was what we'd been wanting for years without being able to admit it. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "How long?" David whispered. "How long have I wanted to do that?" "Years," I said. "How long have I been in love with you?" "Probably since we were kids, but I only figured it out senior year." "I've been dreaming about you," David confessed, "for months. I kept telling myself it was just curiosity, just wondering what it would be like." But he touched my face gently. "I love you too, Mike. I think I always have." The next few months were like living in a dream. We were careful to be discreet. Our town wasn't exactly known for its progressive attitudes, and David's family would have been devastated if they'd found out. But in private, we were happy in a way I'd never experienced before. We'd hold hands while watching movies in our dorm room, fall asleep tangled together in David's narrow bed, and spend hours just talking about our future together. After we graduate, we could move to Atlanta, David said one night as we lay together in the dark. Get an apartment together, I could teach and coach baseball, you could work for a publishing company or a magazine. You've thought about this, I said, smiling. I think about it all the time. I think about us having a real life together, not having to hide anymore. What about your family? David was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I hope eventually they'll understand. I hope they'll see that this doesn't change who I am, that I'm still their son. I wanted to believe that too. But I knew David's parents better than he thought I did. I'd seen the way his father talked about moral decay in his sermons, the way his mother's face hardened when certain topics came up in conversation. But I didn't want to burst David's bubble, so I kept my concerns to myself. We managed to keep our relationship secret through the rest of freshman year and most of sophomore year. We got an apartment together off campus, telling everyone we were just roommates saving money. Our friends suspected nothing. After all, we've been best friends forever, so living together seemed natural. But secrets have a way of coming out, especially in small towns where privacy is a luxury few people can afford. It happened during Thanksgiving break of our sophomore year. We'd been home for the holiday, being careful to maintain the facade of just being friends, but I guess we'd gotten too comfortable. David's younger sister Sarah caught us kissing in his garage late one night when we thought everyone was asleep. Sarah was 16 and had always looked up to David. She'd kept his secrets before, the time he'd gotten drunk at a party, the time he'd lied about where he was going on a date, but this was different. This challenged everything she'd been taught about right and wrong, sin and salvation. She didn't say anything that night, but 3 days later, David called me in tears. She told them, he said, his voice breaking. Sarah told my parents about us. What happened? They want to see you, both of us, tonight. My hands were shaking as I drove to David's house that evening. His parents were waiting in the living room, his father stern and silent, his mother red-eyed from crying. David sat on the opposite end of the couch from them, looking smaller than I'd seen him since we were children. Michael, Mr. Patterson said when I sat down, David has told us about your relationship. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I want you to know that we don't blame you entirely, Mrs. Patterson said, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. We know that David has always been impressionable, and being away at college, exposed to influences. It's not Mike's fault, David said quietly. This isn't something that happened to me. This is who I am. No, his father said firmly. This is a choice you're making, a sinful choice that goes against everything we've taught you, everything we believe. Dad, don't. Mr. Patterson held up a hand. I've spoken to Pastor Williams. There are programs, places where you can get help, where you can learn to overcome these urges. I felt sick, Mr. Patterson. With all due respect, there's nothing wrong with David. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. Michael, I know your parents have different beliefs than we do, Mrs. Patterson said, but David was raised in the church. He knows right from wrong. This relationship is leading him away from God, away from his family, away from the life he's supposed to have. The life I'm supposed to have? David stood up, his voice rising. You mean the life you've planned for me? Marry some girl from church, have kids, pretend to be something I'm not for the rest of my life? We mean a life of purpose and righteousness, his father said, a life that honors God and your family. I am honoring my family, David said desperately. I'm being honest with you. I'm telling you who I really am. This isn't who you are, his mother said, tears flowing freely now. This is confusion, rebellion. You're throwing away your future, your soul, for what? A phase? An experiment? For love, David said simply. I love Mike. I've loved him for years. That's not confusion or rebellion. That's the most real thing in my life. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Mr. Patterson spoke. Then you have a choice to make, son. You can end this relationship, get the help you need, and come back to your family and your faith, or you can continue down this path and lose both. You're giving me an ultimatum? David's voice was barely a whisper. "We're giving you a chance to come home," his mother said. "But not with him, not living this lifestyle. If you choose to continue this relationship, then you're choosing to cut yourself off from everything that should matter to you." I wanted to speak up, to argue, to fight for us. But looking at David's face, seeing the anguish there, I realized that this wasn't my choice to make. This was about more than just our relationship. It was about David's entire family, his faith, his sense of identity. "I need time to think," David said finally. "Take all the time you need," his father said. "But understand that our position won't change. This is about your eternal soul, David. Nothing is more important than that." I drove home in a daze, and David and I barely spoke for the rest of the break. When we returned to school, things were different between us. David was withdrawn, conflicted, spending hours on the phone with his parents and his pastor. I tried to be supportive, but I could feel him pulling away. "I don't know what to do," he told me one night as we sat in our apartment, the space between us on the couch feeling like a chasm. "I love you, Mike. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. But they're my family. They raised me, they love me, and I'm breaking their hearts. What do you want to do?" I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. "I want both," he said, tears in his eyes. "I want you and I want my family. I want to be true to myself and I want to honor my parents, but I can't have both, can I?" I knew then what I had to do. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but as I looked at the pain on David's face, I knew it was the right one. "David," I said softly, "go home." "What?" "Go home to your family. Choose them." "Mike, no, I can't lose you." "You're not losing me. You're choosing the life that will make you happy in the long run. Your family, your faith, those things are part of who you are. I can't ask you to give that up for me." "But I love you." "I love you too, that's why I'm telling you to go." I reached for his hand, memorizing the feel of his fingers intertwined with mine. "David, you've been torn apart by this choice for weeks. You're miserable. And even if you chose me, you'd always wonder what if. You'd always resent me for what you gave up." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" I asked gently. "Be honest. Can you really see yourself being happy, cutting off your family forever? Never talking to your parents again? Missing your sister's wedding? Never meeting your nieces and nephews? Living with that guilt and loss for the rest of your life?" David was crying now, and so was I. "I don't want to lose you. Be your friend, David? Maybe not the way we are now, but I'll always care about you. And someday when you're coaching Little League and teaching Sunday school and living the life your parents want for you, you'll be glad you made this choice. What about you? What about your happiness?" I smiled through my tears. "I'll be okay. I'll hurt for a while, but I'll be okay. And knowing that you're happy, that you're at peace with your family and your faith, that will help." We held each other that night one last time. In the morning, David packed his things and moved back home. He transferred to a school closer to his family, started seeing a counselor recommended by his church, and slowly began the process of rebuilding his relationship with his parents. We kept in touch for a while, careful, friendly emails and occasional phone calls. He told me about his classes, his new girlfriend, his plans to become a teacher. I told him about my internships, my graduate school applications, my life moving forward without him. 2 years later, David sent me an invitation to his wedding. The girl was someone from his church, a sweet-faced blonde who looked at him with obvious adoration in the engagement photo. I stared at that invitation for a long time, then wrote a polite note declining and sent a generous gift from their registry. I didn't hear from David again for almost 5 years. By then, I was living in New York, working for a literary magazine, and had found love again with someone who didn't have to choose between me and his family. I was happy, genuinely happy, but there was still a David-shaped space in my heart that no one else could fill. He called me on a Tuesday evening in October, his voice familiar despite the years of silence. "Mike, it's David." "David, hi." My heart was racing. "How are you?" "I'm good. I'm a father now. A little girl named Emma. She's beautiful." "Congratulations, that's wonderful." "Thanks, Mike. I called because I wanted you to know that I think about you sometimes, about us, and I wanted to thank you." "Thank me? For making that choice for me when I couldn't make it myself? For putting my happiness above your own?" His voice was thick with emotion. "I know it cost you. I know how much it hurt. But you were right. I am happy. I love my wife, I love my daughter, I love my life, and I never could have had this if we hadn't. I'm glad, I said, and meant it. I'm glad you're happy, David. Are you? Happy, I mean? Yeah, I am. It took a while, but yeah, I'm happy too. Good, that's all I wanted to know. We talked for a few more minutes about safe things. His job, my work, the weather. When we hung up, I sat in my apartment and cried. Not from sadness, but from a kind of bittersweet relief. David was happy. The choice we'd made, the sacrifice we'd both endured had been worth it. I never spoke to David again after that call, but I didn't need to. I knew he was living the life he was meant to live, surrounded by people who loved and accepted him without condition. And I was living mine, different from what I'd once imagined, but full and meaningful in its own way. Sometimes people ask me if I regret that choice, if I wish I'd fought harder for us. The answer is complicated. I regret that the world wasn't different, that love wasn't enough to overcome the barriers between us. But I don't regret choosing David's happiness over my own desires. Real love, I learned, sometimes means letting go. Years later, when I married my husband James in a ceremony surrounded by friends and family who celebrated our love, I thought about David. I hoped he was somewhere, living his truth as I was finally living mine, understanding that there are many different kinds of courage and many different ways to honor love. The choice we made broke both our hearts, but it also taught us something important about sacrifice and selflessness. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away, when to put someone else's needs above your own, when to choose their peace over your own happiness. I loved David enough to let him go, and in the end that love gave us both the chance to find the lives we were meant to live.